Today on Locked On Rockies, it's New Year resolution time. So what's the biggest one for the Colorado Rockies?
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock On Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 31st and final day of the year 2024. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes. You can let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies. You just got to head over there and let me know what is on your mind. We dive into YouTube comments all the time. Love hearing from Rockies fans over there. So one of the best way to interact with the show is by joining us there on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. Today on the show, we're going to talk about New Year's resolutions. The key one for me, it's a word I've said about 5 billion times on this podcast, comes back down to identity. We're also going to talk about an interesting statistic of note from Patrick Lyons. We teased and talked a little bit about it yesterday about no free agent multi-year deals outside of Chris Bryant in the recent years. That goes hand in hand in what we're talking about when it comes to identity. And just wrapping up the year, folks. It's over. It's done. The finish line is here when it comes to 2024. Hope it was a good year for y'all. It was a good year for the Locked On Rockies podcast, not necessarily the Rockies themselves, but you folks showed up all year through the offseason to start the year, through the season, and have continued to show nothing but support here throughout this offseason. Thank you. Thank you again, folks. Really, really appreciate you making us your first listen of the day. All right. So I want to start here. And if this part isn't anything new to the everydayers. What I want the Rockies to focus on is identity. We could talk New Year's resolutions, strike out less, more competitive at bats, better pitching, better this, better that. I still think that we can keep getting into the weeds of these players, this player, and what we think of them and that. But the core issues of the Rockies, the things that need changing the most, lie at its center and at its highest level. This needs to be a team that forms an actual legit identity and starts to stick with it. There are elements of it, but it's not fully what they're buying into. Look at the pitchers they've drafted. Would you say the pitchers that they've recently drafted are hard ground ball guys or guys that have a different mix that the Rockies aren't usually accustomed to? And think about the other position players that the Rockies are going after. Thinking about the trades, some of the identities, some of the moves they've made and the players they've moved on from. Think about that as well. But there's still no cohesive identity. The Rockies claim themselves as a draft and develop team. And this was an interesting tweet here put out by Brooksgate, and then a little bit of commentary from Skylar Timmons, friend of the show here. But this ranking here is picks from the last 10 drafts, ranking them by the amount that have reached Major League Baseball and their FanGraphs WAR. That's what they're doing. These are draft picks that signed with the team. The Rockies have had 35 drafted players from the last 10 drafts make it to Major League Baseball. They have given the lowest combined WAR by nearly 11 points. 9.8 WAR for the Rockies to 20.4 for the White Sox, who've gotten 34 players to the majors. The Nationals at 20.5. They are the only team, according to this, not in double digits. So if you're a draft and develop team, what's gone wrong? What's been the issue over these drafts? What has happened with these players? And coincidentally, when you're really thinking about it, where are they? Out of the last 10 drafts, where are these players? You got Tovar here, you got Doyle, you got and you got Tollia making an appearance finally. But overall, how can you sit there and fully stake your claim to saying what makes us successful is our ability to draft and develop players? But then yet when they reach the major league level, they're not ready. They're underperformed. They can't hang with the standards. Again, this is a drop off, and this chart isn't perfect. All be all. It's just an example. The Astros have had 51, and they have a combined WAR of those players of 110.4. That is 100 wins above replacement. Now, over 100 wins above replacement than the Rockies when it comes to developing players. The Cardinals at 92.8 for 32 players. And again, I know that it could be crazy because, well, the Astros at 51. Of course, they're so much higher. They still got 51 players to the major league out of their last 10 drafts. There are teams that are successful at not only getting players to the majors, but putting them into a high categories, players that immediately have impacts, players that have, that splash. And for the Rockies to be so low, but not just slightly behind, but to be the only team not in double digits, to be the only team that this far down, that complicates the narrative of being a draft and develop team, because we'd be sitting here and seeing a bunch of great drafted players from the last 10 drafts if that was the case. And that's not it. Not to mention, again, we're talking development here. The Rockies are doubling down with putting Chris Bryant in the outfield. It's done. Chris Bryant will be playing right field. So there's limited options for these players to get opportunity. All of the stuff that drives you nuts about Rockies development, they're still on that track. So for this year, when we're talking about resolutions, I want you to actually to fully commit to that. If you're going to be a draft and develop team, develop your players. Because you can draft them, you can sign them, but they're not up to snuff. They're not performing. They're not major league ready. And that's on you, the organization. And again, you're creating situations in which you're going to bring up young guys and they're going to sit on the bench while Chris Bryant plays below average defense in right field. And I know it's the Chris Bryant. Again, he's just picking at Chris Bryant. It's not Chris Bryant. It is not. Chris Bryant is being told as a player, you're playing there, you're playing there. And if his health allows him, Chris Bryant is gonna play where you put him. That's his job. But it's the philosophies, it's the organization. And again, this is a team that has doubled and tripled down on the people in the organization, the people making the calls, the people running the team. This is a team that is fully cementing itself into what they think is an identity, what they believe is the identity of the Rockies, yet the results are completely different. When you say that you're a draft and develop team, and you have this chart and you have this, and it's a small sample. Again, I put all the asterisks you want on the data, but there's probably plenty of more ways to look at it than just this one thing I found on Twitter. I don't think I'm shocking you all by saying that I don't actually believe that the Rockies are a draft and develop team. They have not been able to develop the talent to the levels that they've needed to do it. And they certainly haven't been developing these last 10 drafts this level of talent to compete with their division, let alone the rest of baseball. Now, this can change. The farm system has been changing. This is from Bleacher Report right here, talking about tier players. They did an updated look at farm systems, and they broke down players into three tiers. Prospects who have elite skills and all-star potential, that's tier 1, cream of the crop. Tier 2, prospects who have a good chance of becoming impact contributors, players who are in consideration for spots on the top 100 prospects list could end up there. And Tier 3, prospects who profiles fringe MLB contributors or young players who are still raw to project any higher. The good news when you're thinking about that, though, and the signs that maybe the Rockies are improving in this area in their identity, are in this farm system, are in moves that are made. But again, because before I get to my end again, following up on this Bleacher Report, Rockies, the 10th ranked farm system here in there. They have, out of their top 10 prospects, they have 3 of them in that tier 3 category. You have, what is this? 5 of them in that tier 2 category. And you have 2 of them in that tier 3 category. And with the description saying that they might have a couple of steals in there as well, and giving props to the Rockies drafts in the last few years. That's great. The draft part, got it. But do we sit here and believe that the Rockies right now, as the organization has been run, as it's gone through, as we've seen with other players, do we believe they can develop these players into being league leaders, into all-stars, into game changers? And if they don't play shortstop, I'm not necessarily confident that they can. There's one position group that they have knocked it out of the park in, and it's shortstop. The rest of it's all up in the air. And again, I bring up the fact that these young players are gonna need playing time. And this team does not do a good job of getting all of its young guys on the field as much as they need to. You could sit there and, well, they did it all last year because they were put in that situation by injuries. And now for the doubling down on the plan for certain players, that is going to impact what the Rockies are able to do. So I want them to fully commit to something, fully commit to a rebuild, fully commit to being a draft and developing team. And if you're going to fully commit to being a drafting and developing team, I better see more investment in analytics. And I better see analytics people not leaving the team with under a year of experience with this team. But I'm sorry, I ain't buying the Rockies changing their minds. I ain't buying the Rockies going into 2025 thinking that they're going to do something drastically different. I'm not buying it. This team has to show me with this with this farm system that's gaining momentum, that's gaining steam, that's building momentum, that they can translate from the minors to the majors, because the Rockies haven't done that enough. And as a result of that has impacted, I believe, their philosophy for going out and getting free agents and signing free agents and becoming a spot for free that is of interest for free agents to sign, and to sign for multiple years. Let's talk about that coming up in segment number 2. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes Rocket Money. And Rocket Money is going to take care of you because they got you covered when it comes to subscriptions you might have forgotten about, or maybe, and this might sound wild, paying for twice. That has happened. That has happened to folks. It is not that uncommon that you might have forgotten about the free trial on this, might have forgotten about the free trial on that. Well, guess what? Rocket Money has made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million. $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com and check out the goals feature so you can make sure that you are automatically setting aside money for your future, and so you don't stress about budgeting every month. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast, for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, favorite streaming services, and the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. Check it out there. And for your second listen of the day, why don't you go make Locked On MLB your second listen of the day? Or if you need more Colorado sports coverage, Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs, free and streaming on those streaming services. and of course on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. All right, let's go back to our tweet from yesterday. That is a real doozy of an interesting one, I think, at least for me. This is, over the past 6 off seasons, the Colorado Rockies have signed only one free agent to a multi-year contract. 2020, none. 2021, none. 2022, Chris Bryant, 7 years, $182 million. 2023, none. 2024, none. 2025, none. That's a problem. It's a problem. And again, we can point and look at and rewind and point to things and be like, but this, but that, but boom, but boom, but boom, but boom, but boom, but boom. I talked a little bit about this yesterday, but and why this relates to the first segment as well. It is because the identity that's been created of the Rockies is a place where people don't want to play. And I know that, but that's plain and simple. We're talking multi-year deals from free agents, and the Rockies themselves probably haven't been ultra aggressive in seeking these contracts. I think their financial issues have clearly influenced this as well. But this goes back to the identity thing. This is the Rockies sitting there and saying over these years, saying, "Nope, we got it in-house. We got it. We can fix it. We can handle this." Remind me, how many straight losing seasons have the Rockies had? Remind me, when was the last time the Rockies were in the playoffs? Remind me, what was the big issue for the Rockies during that playoff run? Those are all questions that lead into creating this situation where, yes, we can sit here. And again, I'm not going to forget the money stuff that Patrick Lyons told me. Big deal. Huge deal. But a team that was up there in attendance pre-pandemic, a team that had excitement brewing, has instead pivoted, tried to make the Chris Bryant thing happen, and has moved on from most big names and popular names within the Rockies in this idea that they think they got it covered with the draft and development. So instead of signing big name free agents, and I am on the record on this show multiple times preaching the 1 year deal and that. I'm not opposed to that still. I'm not against it. But this doesn't, when you see those numbers, no wonder people are bored with the Rockies. No wonder there's a lack of excitement about the Rockies. Every offseason, this team is asleep at the wheel, signing minor league deals, trading minor league level deals for lower profile things, and not doing anything to build up and make it exciting. So again, if your identity is draft and develop, you have to lean into these young, exciting players. And as they're trying to do that now, they're completely missing the boat on opportunities to make their teams better and to add a power bat. Add a player that could have been the difference maker. Add, instead of moving on from Nolan Arenado in that team. Add when Trevor Story is still on the team and John Gray is on the team and you're not as far behind as you are. And now, for veteran players interested that in coming to Colorado or interested in that, the ones that are saying, I want 3 years, the Rockies looks like they're already walking away from the table. Maybe I think obviously too, burned by the Chris Bryant deal, burned by other deals in the past, but that's them. It's not the players. That's on them. And I do think the Rockies too sat and saw where the market was going for marquee players or even run-of-the-mill players, and they just said, nope, no chance. Not on our watch. Not going to do it. The Chris Bryant deal is an outlier. And it's amazing. If you're a free agent and you're even curious about the idea of Colorado, are you even being approached? Is a 3-year deal even possible? So why would agents sit here and try to get their players involved with Colorado? If the Rockies aren't going to commit to them and give them deals of longer time. It might not even be just about the money part. It might be about the time. So again, it's all right, we're draft and develop. Where are the influx of young players that's going to change everything? I know there's a couple, but Nolan Jones and Ezekiel Tovar and Brenton Doyle are not enough. The young bullpen is not enough. I think, again, it was a team. The Rockies doubled down with their extensions, got the big name in Chris Bryant, and then everything else has been evaluate case by case. I just think this sends the wrong message to fans. It sends the wrong message to players. It sends the wrong message. There's just not a lot coming out about the Rockies organization that's going to make them an enticing and exciting place to be. You can get the coach and players speak all you want. Oh, it's an exciting place to be. A lot of young talent, blah, 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 blah. You can go. That's the song and dance we go through every year with some of these players. But look at what the Diamondbacks just did. Look at what the Padres have done. And the Padres are kind of a weird case there, too, where they'll trade for you and they might not keep you the whole time and move you on. So maybe the Padres aren't the best case. But I guess really more what I'm saying is the Dodgers are making moves. The Padres haven't made as many moves, but have made moves over this time. The Giants are making moves. The Diamondbacks are making moves. The rest of baseball is making moves. And when you see those draft WAR numbers, when you see the lack of free agent signings to multi-year deals, does that build confidence in you in the Rockies? Does that make you feel like the Rockies organization is in a good spot? How could it? How could it? And all the Rockies' problems aren't fixed if they just go out and sign 3 people to 3-year deals and blah, blah, blah. And I understand that. But it's the fact that we as Rockies fans can go into every offseason and basically just say there's no way they're going to sign X. And it doesn't have to be Soto. It doesn't have to be the biggest names in the game. It all just goes back to that again. If you think that you're so good at player evaluation, where are the results? Where is that to back it up? Because the Rockies have not been impressive as a team in years. Right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not that I don't know. Me personally, I find them unimpressive. I haven't been impressed with what the Rockies have done since making the playoffs in back-to-back years. Because the standard has been set of just confusion and I don't know if it's lack of a plan or that, but it's just a lack of confidence that this team is going to do something like make another splash move. Like, what happens if every young player that gets consistent playing time and the pitching staff all take steps forward this year? Rockies hit 72 wins, and everyone's sitting around like, actually, hey, keep an eye on these Rockies. What happens then? What happens if a premier second base option has opened up? Are you going to go and make an offer on a free agent, or are you going to double down and say, nope, we got it in the farm system. He's going to develop and he's going to be what we want. What about a prime DH candidate? Prime DH candidate. Let Chris Bryant play. Who knows? Would the Rockies even approach a multi-year deal? And the answer has to, and at least the answer that we guess has to be no. The answer for Rockies or for veteran players interested in 3 to 5 year deals or multiple year deals, the Rockies are not interested in them. That is what these numbers say. And it all just kind of connects, right? Well, we don't need to sign someone long-term because we got X coming up in the wings, but X ain't going to plan. X ain't developing the way that we wanted. So, well, we're just going to do it anyway. And hope and hope and hope. So for this next year, I just want there to be a plan that can be stuck with. and a plan that's going to see results. And I just don't think the wins, losses, the development of players, these WAR numbers that we talked about today, these lack of contracts, I think all of this mixed together shows that the identity that the Rockies have crafted for themselves and the stuff that they are doing ain't working. But I'm not going to lie. I'll believe change is coming to the Rockies when I see it, because we've seen how important loyalty is to this team. Let's go into the new year with a positive message, though, and we'll do that coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot. Shout-outs to you. Shout-outs to all our everydayers out there for checking us out here throughout the offseason. So, all in all, as much as I've kind of put a downer and been a doubter throughout all this episode, every new baseball season, every spring training, every new year brings a whole bunch of opportunity and possibility. It's the beauty of New Year's. It's the beauty of trying to find something on the optimistic side. There is a possibility for the Rockies to demonstrate and show what they have been working towards, what they believe internally as a team, as an organization, what they're doing is going to pan out. It could. The Rockies could take a big step this year. The players could develop. Things are moving in the right direction when it comes to farm system rankings and draft process and draft results and players in the system. There's a lot that can go well. And if it does go well, the Rockies could embrace it, could bring a new mindset, could make them make decisions they didn't do, move in directions they didn't go. But it could also make them double down and continue doing what they're doing and continue to hope for, all right, we're going to open up a 2-year really good window, slam it shut, see ya. We're out of here. I don't think the Rockies can build or are going to be able to flip immediately into a team that's going to be a Dodgers juggernaut 20-year span of absolute dominance. But I think change has to be on the horizon, at least in one way or another, for the Rockies. Some of us will look at it in good ways. Some of us will look at it in bad ways. It'll be good or bad depending on your perception of it all. 2025 is an incredibly important year for the Colorado Rockies. It's crazy to say that, I know, but there are so many things that are at crossroads here and so many decisions that have to be made as you continue to navigate what's going on and navigate an increasingly a league that is getting increasingly more difficult to compete in. Change is going to have to come for the Rockies, whether they like it or not, whether they want to or not. There are going to be forces, there are going to be things that are going to happen, good or bad, that is going to push them in certain directions. I just wish I could confidently say that the Rockies will make the decisions in order to put themselves in a successful position. Wins and loss wise. I think they're doing okay on the business side. Minus the whole streaming thing. But that, I mean, so even that, how many times, every time I say I'm confident in the Rockies or something, there is always a caveat with the Colorado Rockies. And that's a problem. I just want this team to be what it actually says it is. If it's draft and develop, actually draft and develop your players. If you're an offensive, we want to be the team, if you want to do these things, you want to be these things, show us that you can be. Prove it. And I don't think it's out of the question to think that they can prove it. That they can show that they're gotten better. That there was a reason why you brought Bud Black back. There was a reason why you're sticking to your guns. Sticking through this. Might end up like Dan Campbell in the Lions. Dan Campbell went through some stuff, and now he's one of the most popular coaches in the game. My point is, hope is okay to have. this year is full of possibilities. Things haven't gone wrong yet. So let's hold on to the fact that things can go well before they start not going well, and hope for the best for our beloved Colorado Rockies. But folks, that's going to do for today's episode of Locked On Rockies, and that is going to do it for that's going to do it for 2024's coverage of the Colorado Rockies on the Locked On Rockies podcast. We'll be back in 2025 with more daily Colorado Rockies talk. Thank you again so much for making this a special year on the Locked On Rockies podcast. Thank you so much for all of your support throughout the year, and thank you so much for tuning in each and every day. For your second listen of the day, go check out Locked On MLB, and of course, more Colorado sports coverage of Locked On Broncos, Avalanche, Nuggets, Buffs, all free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. Until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from Locked On Rockies, and Happy New Year.